I had planned to jump off a bridge near where I live. I was completely determined to end my life. I was utterly drained, with no love or desire left to continue. I had nothing more to offer life, if that makes any sense. It was just before Christmas and the snow was falling. I stopped at a hotel near the bridge to use their Wi-Fi to finish my suicide notes. I was almost done when my laptop battery died, so I decided to book a room to charge it. While I was waiting, I started to feel hungry. The hunger felt more like a burden than a need, and it was annoying, so I decided to go get something to eat. This hotel was in a small town, and the only restaurant was right next to it. I went there and found a closed sign on the door, but the lights were on, and I heard voices inside, so I went in. A gray-haired man came out from the back and told me that he and the staff were having a Christmas party, but the chef could make something for me. I entered the main dining hall and sat down to wait. After a while, I decided to get myself a beer. A large black man came out of the kitchen and asked me what I wanted to eat. I told him a burger with fries would be good, or anything easy for him to prepare. I went back to my seat and started wondering what a large black man was doing in such a small, closed-off town. After a short while, he came out of the kitchen with the burger, fries, another beer for me, and one for himself. He sat next to me without asking for permission. At that moment, my thoughts about the suicide note faded, and I started feeling annoyed by his presence. But he began talking to me, telling me about his life, just to fill the silence, as if he knew I needed that. Then suddenly, he told me that what I was about to do was a huge mistake. He said, "If you don't care about life, why not do the things that make you happy? Why not achieve everything you've wanted to do but postponed because of work or solving other people's problems?" He said many other things, some of which made me feel like he knew me well, as if his words were a warning message, but with a comforting tone, as if he was sure I would get through all this pain and live a good life. By the end of the conversation, I was too exhausted to finish my note. I decided to postpone it until the morning. When I woke up, I made a decision. I'd give myself just one more year, just 1 year to try everything that man suggested. I decided to put all my energy into pursuing happiness and accomplishing everything I'd been postponing. Then, I decided to go back to the restaurant to find him, or at least leave him a thank you note. When I went in, no one knew what I was talking about. There had been no Christmas party, and no black man had ever worked there. In fact, the restaurant had closed at 5 p.m. the previous evening due to bad weather. I left there shocked, but I wasn't completely surprised. Everything that night had felt like a strange dream, and to this day, I don't know who that man was. All I know is that I owe him my life. The changes I made after meeting him eventually led me to meet my husband and have my son. Last summer, we stopped at that place during a road trip, and I cried when I realized how close I had come to ending my life. I can't imagine my life without knowing my husband or my son. I think about that man a lot. I call him my angel. Honestly, I don't care if he was a real angel or not. He will always be the angel who saved my life. I hope that one day I'll be able to return the favor to someone else. A few years ago, I was at my lowest point in life. Several people close to me had passed away unexpectedly. I was being bullied every day at my job. My life was falling apart. I was past being depressed. I just couldn't imagine waking up another day. So I'd planned my suicide. Bought a one-way plane ticket, got sleeping pills, and wrote a series of suicide notes. On the day I was to fly out to fulfill my plan, there was a terrible accident on the freeway to the airport. It was shut down both ways, so I drove into a nearby pub to have a beer and wait out the traffic. The second I sat on the patio with my drink, a gentleman asked if he could sit with me. Whatever, I thought, sure, who cares? He told me that whatever I was doing next was a terrible idea and I would regret it. I thought, who is this random fucker? But I listened. He said that he sensed I was in pain, but that I had an incredible life ahead of me, and that this was not the way my story was supposed to end. Again, I'd never met this guy in my life, and hadn't mentioned a word to him about my plan. He asked me to hand him my keys and my wallet, and he'd give them back to me after I talked, and he listened. I poured my heart out to this random guy, told him all my traumas and pains in life and why I was heading to the airport on a one-way ticket to kill myself in a cemetery across the country where my family was buried. He just listened, and then he pulled out a lighter, asked me to pull out my suicide letters, and helped me burn them. He told me I was worth so much to the world and that after I finished my drink, I needed to head home and get some sleep. He told me I was going to be okay tomorrow, and I believed him. He then gave me my keys and wallet back. I left that afternoon and went home, hugged my family, got some sleep, and the next day I started working on myself, finding a therapist, a new job. Years later, I'm in a fantastic place in life, so far from where I was that day. To this day, no one in my life knows how close I came to killing myself. But this random stranger just somehow understood me and saved my life. I never saw him again. I don't even know his name. It's the most unexplained thing that has ever happened to me. And I think about that guy every day, so thank you, kind stranger, for saving my life that random September day on a pub patio. My Nana great-grandma and Mum were very close but lived overseas from one another my whole life. They talked on the phone every Sunday, but because it was an international call, it was extremely expensive, so they took turns calling every Sunday at 8 a.m. to make the cost equal. However, due to a 4-minute difference in clocks, Nana always ended up calling at 8:04. Also, the caller ID never showed up. Mum called on a Sunday, Nana died on a Tuesday. The following week, we're sitting at the table eating breakfast, and Mum notices at 7:50 a.m. Nana would have been calling any minute. She gets emotional. I comfort her. Then at 8:04 a.m., the motherfucking phone rings. The called ID reads unknown caller. We look at each other like, what is this, some sort of sick joke? She answers. There's nothing but static at the other line and some garbled voice recording. The only decipherable words in it are, "We hope you enjoy your trip to paradise." Click, phone cuts off. Absolutely no explanation for that one. Still baffles me to this day. I was probably 14 years old, and it was the early 1990s. We were traveling from Texas to Tacoma, Washington. We had almost run out of money, were out of gas, had no food, and were stranded in Chico, California. I was sitting in the car while my mom took my 2 little sisters to the restroom at a gas station. I was overwhelmed with worry about our situation, staring down. Suddenly, the car door opened, and I looked up. A woman with brown hair, resembling the mom from the Brady Bunch, sat in the seat next to me and turned toward me. She said, "Looks like luck's not on your side. Take this and give it to your mom. Tell her to pay it forward someday to someone in need." I looked at my hand and found a $100 bill. I looked up again, but she was gone. She wasn't in the parking lot. She had completely vanished. I cried. When my mom came back, I told her what had happened, and she cried too. We used the money to buy gas, and then we saw a man selling oranges by the roadside. We bought a bag, went to a local park where there was a part of the river with a small dam, swam, and ate oranges for hours before continuing on our way. I never saw that woman again, but she saved us, and we made it to Tacoma to start our new life. Thank you, mysterious woman with the hidden powers. We've never forgotten your kindness. My friend Ricky told me this story a few years ago. Ricky is a very serious, conservative man in his mid-30s. He's not particularly religious, doesn't drink alcohol or use drugs, and doesn't believe in anything supernatural. His hobbies are limited to hunting, fishing, and eating venison and wild game. That's it. He's not the type to make up stories, which is why I believed him when he told me this story. When Ricky was 24 years old, he was in the bathroom when he heard someone moving around in his house. That person was his brother, Mickey. Ricky was shocked to see him because his brother was in college on the other side of the country. Mickey said, "I just wanted to tell you that everything's okay, man. I'm fine." Ricky was stunned and couldn't understand what was going on, so he asked, "What's happening? What happened?" Mickey replied, "I have to go now. Sorry, there's no time to stay. I love you." Then he walked out the front door. Ricky was bewildered and couldn't speak. He said he felt frozen, covered in chills and barely able to talk the entire time. He tried to follow him and ran out the door, but Mickey was gone. There was no trace of him. No sound of a car engine driving away, nothing. Ricky immediately called him, and this was in the early 2000s, before everyone had cell phones. There was no answer. He called his mother, who picked up, and told her that Mickey had shown up at his house and was acting strange. She had no idea what he was talking about. Both of them tried to reach Mickey all day without success. Ricky even drove around the neighborhood looking for him. About an hour later, his mother called Ricky back. Mickey had died in a car accident late the night before. The car hadn't been found until the morning because it was in a field far from the road. I've always had a special cat, my childhood companion who had been with me since I was 5 years old. He slept with me every night, curled up between my legs as if he had found the safest and most comfortable place there. I could feel his warmth, his calm breathing, and his gentle movements as he settled into his usual spot. We were connected in a way that's hard to describe, but after I moved to Boston for work, I had to leave him with my parents on the West Coast. It was a tough decision, but he was old, and I didn't want to subject him to the stress of traveling. Still, not a day passed without me thinking of him or missing his presence beside me at night. One night, I suddenly woke up to a familiar feeling, something I hadn't felt in a long time. There was something heavy yet comforting on my bed, something soft and warm nestled between my legs, just like my cat used to do. It was so strange because I lived alone, and there were no pets in my apartment. But I was certain of what I felt. I slowly opened my eyes and glanced down at my feet, but the room was dark. I tried to move my legs slightly to see if there was really something there, but there was no resistance, as if something had been there for a moment and then vanished. I shivered a little, feeling an odd chill run through me, but I convinced myself it was just a dream. Maybe just an illusion crafted by my mind from missing him so much. In the morning, as I sipped my coffee, trying to shake off that strange feeling, my phone rang. It was my mother on the other end, her voice calm but tinged with sadness. After exchanging the usual greetings, she took a deep breath and said, "Sweetheart, I have some bad news. Your cat passed away last night. We found him lying peacefully in his favorite corner. It seems he passed away quietly around midnight." I froze in place, feeling a shiver run through my body. I looked at the clock and calculated the time difference. Midnight there meant 3 a.m. here, exactly the moment I had felt him on my bed. Was it just an illusion? Or had his spirit crossed thousands of miles just to say goodbye one last time? I never really believed in the supernatural, but that moment changed everything. Perhaps somewhere there's a bond deeper than we can imagine, a bond even death cannot break. I left work at 6 p.m., just as I always did at that time, and began the 1-hour train ride home. After finding a seat, I dozed off and woke up shortly before reaching my station. From there, I had to take another bus for a short 15-minute ride to get home. Throughout the entire trip, I didn't use my phone, nor was I wearing a watch, so I wasn't paying attention to the time at any point. When I arrived home, I was surprised to hear my family say, "You're back early. Is everything okay?" I looked at the wall clock and it was just about to strike 6 p.m. I was completely shocked and couldn't understand what had happened. I checked other clocks in my mobile phone and the time was absolutely correct. A few days later, the supervisor sent us the monthly time logs via email, showing clock-in and clock-out times. For me, every day indicated almost the exact same time, 6 p.m. So it was certain that I hadn't left work earlier than usual. To this day, I haven't been able to figure out how I gained between 60 to 90 minutes that day. In college, I was roommates with my childhood best friend for about 2 years. We are very trusting with each other. We would go into each other's rooms freely and grab whatever we needed. To borrow clothes, hairbrush, perfume, etc. No questions asked, just a knock if we were in the room to let each other know we were going in. Our rooms are across the hall from each other, with the hall facing the kitchen. So, from the kitchen, you could see down the hall where our rooms were. At the time, my friend had very long black hair and she's very fair-skinned. One day, I get home from work, with my headphones in my ear talking to my mom about my day. I go in the kitchen and grab a snack. I see her walk out of her room and go into mine, leave my room and go back into hers. She looked like she just got out the shower. Her hair was soaking wet, and she was wrapped in a white towel. Her long black wet hair is what I distinctly remember. Also, she made no eye contact with me, but I didn't think it was weird. I didn't say anything to her since borrowing each other's stuff was normal. I'm still on the phone with my mom, so I don't think much of it. I grab my snack, hang up with my mom, and go into my room to watch TV. I figured she's getting ready to go somewhere, and we'll talk later. About an hour passes, and I go to the kitchen to clean the plate I ate on. I see her in the kitchen making something to eat, and I tell her, "Hey, what did you grab from my room earlier? Did you find what you needed?" She looks at me like if I was crazy and says, "What are you talking about?" So I say, "Yeah, earlier, when I got home, I saw you go into my room and grab something. Did you get what you needed? Sorry I didn't say hi, I was on the phone with my mom." She asks me if I'm sure I saw her. I said yes, 100%. She tells me to grab my phone and go to her car ASAP, that she needs to show me something. I had my phone on me and she grabbed my keys from the kitchen counter along with her purse, and she drags me out the front door and into her car. She then tells me she got home maybe 5 minutes before we started talking. She had spent the night at her boyfriend's and hadn't been home all day. So she has no idea who I saw. I'll never forget the look on her face when she told me this. Complete fear and panic. She called the cops and they came along with the apartment manager. They checked the whole apartment and found no one. Nothing amiss. And they were in there a while, checking every nook and cranny. The manager got maintenance to change our locks and gave us new keys that day. My friend then tells me that for a week she'd been hearing noises from her bathroom like bottles moving, and when she went to check she found nothing. I have no idea who I saw going in and out of our rooms, but it looked exactly like my friend. I don't drink or do drugs, not on meds. This was in 2014, and I still freak out when I think about it. About 25 years ago, my ex-wife and I were house-sitting. We were there for several weeks, and both of us noticed that we always felt something strange when coming up from the basement, as if something was about to grab us the moment we turned off the light. Other than that, everything in the house seemed normal. We used to sleep with a manually wound analog alarm clock beside us, the kind that makes a tick-tick sound with every second. To set the alarm, you had to move a small third hand to the desired time, like placing it halfway between 6 and 7 to set it for 6:30. It was a completely manual process, and it was hard to get it wrong. We always set the alarm for 6 a.m. and never messed with it daily. But one night, the alarm suddenly went off loudly at 2 a.m. It was an old-fashioned alarm with ringing bells. My ex-wife and I woke up completely terrified. Then I saw a small creature, maybe about 2 feet tall, around 60 centimeters, running out of the room. I thought I was imagining things until my ex-wife screamed, "Did you see that thing?" We both described it as a small creature that resembled a gremlin. And when we looked at the alarm clock, we saw that the alarm hand had been moved from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. That's the whole story. It scared me to my core, and I have no explanation for it. Nothing else ever happened in the house, but the eerie feeling when coming up from the basement never went away.